if you are a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you go to church on Sunday. This is a typical Latter-day Saint church. Up until recently, we went for 3 hours every Sunday. Now we go for 2 hours. The first hour is called Sacrament Meeting. That is the opening hymn, opening prayer, and they do opening prayer. They do sacrament, which they pass the bread and the water. I'll explain why we don't do wine in a later on video. Then we do a speaker. Everyone in the congregation, they pick from the congregation. Every 2 years you speak. And that's what somebody told me they figured out. People are trying to figure out like the calculations of everything and how often they have to speak. We can say no or we can say yes. It's up to us. But I like to speak. Some people don't. Then use the first speaker, the second speaker, and then a resting hymn. And then the closing speaker, and then another hymn, and then they say prayer. In the sacrament, you sit as a family. And yes, it is noisy because there's a lot of kids, but we try our best to keep our children quiet. If you go into a sacrament, a session of a sacrament meeting, and it's loud, please accept the fact that we are trying to keep our children down, but children don't like to be quiet. So that's typical. So after the closing prayer, we go to our separate classes. So children from birth on to 18 stay with their mothers. 18 to 3, they go to nursery. They have a lesson, they have songs, they have a snack, and they have toys in there that they can play with. That's what a typical nursery child goes through. Then the next step up from 3 to 12 is primary. They have singing time, they have a scripture, prayer, a little lesson, and then they have sharing singing time. And then the teachers, actually I think there's 6 teachers in there that they talk to them about this really the principles of the gospel, and they separate into classes like in the middle of primary. So they're in their individual age groups during the second half, and that's what they it's kind of fun for them because they get to be around kids their own age, and they liken the gospel to their own age groups. From 12 on to 18, they're in young women's, young men's. So the reason those are grouped together because it's just the age groups, and they first off they go to one set where they do an opening prayer. They do a little bit of a scriptural thought. Then they go into young women's, go into young women's, and then young men's go into young men's. They talk about things like teenage decisions and how to choose the right and how to be a wholesome Christian person as you grow older, you know what I mean? And for the young women's, yes, they do talk about how to be a good wife and how to be a good mother. But in the young men's, they also talk about how to be a good man, how to be a good husband as well. And after you're 18, you go to what's called Religious Society if you're a woman, and priesthood if you're a man. Priesthood is basically an opening prayer, opening song. That's in every classroom. They will have that. The opening song, opening prayer, and then they give a lesson on what was last week's lesson on? There was something really important. It was on how we can fill our home with wholesome stuff, wholesome doctrine, and how we can bring Christ close into our home on a daily basis. So typically the Religious Society will have the same lesson the priesthood had, but more on the woman's point of view, and the men will have it in the men's point of view. Now that it's only 2 hours instead of 3 hours, because they recently changed church, most LDS, most Latter-day Saint people went to church for 3 hours until a year ago. Now they go to 2 hours. So they have the sacrament. The sacrament meeting is first for 60 hours, and the second one is kind of into the primary and everything. They have that in the young women's, young men's. But with the Religious Society and priesthood, one Sunday we'll have priesthood and Religious Society separate, and the next we'll have Sunday school. Sunday school is this week we talked about Paul the Apostle and how awesome his ministry was, and how every one of his testimonies were different, but it was so strong. You know what I mean? We admire the apostles. They're amazing people. We learn from their works and we read from their works daily. We try to. And that is what the common Latter-day Saint people go through every Sunday. And we hope that if you come to our meetings, we tend to be a little loving, a little bit more than some people are more comfortable with. But we're just so excited to share this with you, and we don't mean to be pushy and a little bit scary. So if you come, expect to be a little more loved, or some people aren't as, open to accepting new people. It's just people in general. So if you go to a church meeting and you're not welcome, try next week. Or if you're a little bit too welcome, try next week, because sometimes we're not so pushy and sometimes we are a little more friendly. It depends on what ward you go to. And that's another video on wards and stakes and everything. I've already covered that. Hope you have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.